Carly-Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I've actually been following you for quite a while, and you actually really helped me on my own journey to kind of become more securely attached away from anxious attachment. So I'm very grateful to you for that, and I'm just very grateful to you for being here and being able to share your wisdom with some of my audience as well, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that, so thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I always find that really weird because you genuinely don't know a lot of the time who you're connecting with.
Yeah.
Like right now, you don't know, like, is there someone right now like listening to one of my podcasts and one of your podcasts?
Yeah, I heard something by Mel Robbins where she said she just hopes that with her content, there's one person out there who the message connects with and just really hits home to. And that's, I think for me, with my content and things like that, my perspective really changed when it went from, wanting to have like this huge impact to actually I just really want to make sure that if I help one person, that's good for me. So
yeah, I think on your like worst days in business, if you come back to that, it's really grounding.
Yes, totally, yeah. So I would love, because actually when I first started out on my journey with anxious attachment, one of the things that sort of came up for me was, so I became aware of it and did a lot of research into it and all that kind of stuff, but there was still a part of me that felt like it was almost like this impossible hill to climb, and that I would never truly be able to rewire my neural pathways to be able to be securely attached. And I've read some of your emails that you've sent out talking a little bit about your journey, so I'd love, if that's okay with you, for you to just share a little bit about who you are, but also your journey of where you went from to now being who you are and changing your pain into your purpose, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that, changing your pain to your purpose. I do feel like my story is a lot like many others that have gone from anxious towards secure, or the people that are on that journey now, meaning that there is this moment where you're just in it, you are living out your anxious attachment without realising. So whether that is for you that you're someone who is chasing with the wrong people, or you're getting, really highly emotional and triggered if your partner says something the wrong way, and you know it's a big reaction. You are often feeling rejected, inferior, or worried about not being good enough in some way. And it shows up slightly different when you're single to when you're in a relationship. But there is this point where you are just being that. And for me, there was moments where I knew this isn't what I want to be doing, but I did think that's who I was. I don't even know if I had that kind of conscious awareness. I was just being and doing, and I did believe that this was love, and I did believe that me and this person were meant to be together, and they just had to realise. And then at some point, perhaps through repetitive patterns, more pain, being on the bathroom floor, getting older, doing this kind of work anyway, because I've been working to help people change in some capacity since I was 20, you have this moment of being hold on, something here isn't right. And there is this moment of being hold on, I keep falling into these patterns. That classic realising that you are playing a role, you are the common denominator. So then you start doing the work, and then you go hard on the work, and then there is this point where perhaps you do start to see some shifts. You are becoming a bit more compassionate towards yourself, but you are recognising those irrational thoughts, but you're not able to stop it. There's that head-heart gap, and so things, but you're still doing things different. That was a huge part of my journey. I was doing this work and still seeing myself chase the wrong person, wanting to text them even though I could see clearly all the red flags. So there was a lot of that, but again, that contemplating, becoming more aware, that messy part when you're between who you have been and the new version of you that you desperately want to be, and that you start to believe maybe I just can't do it. So that happened a lot for me. There was a huge time where it was like maybe I just can't change because the emotion's so big.
Yeah.
And the pull towards the wrong person or the pull towards the unhelpful habit is so strong.
Yeah.
So strong.
And it's such a lifelong journey, really, isn't it? I mean, well, maybe not lifelong, but it's not the kind of thing that you can just have a quick fix for. And so mentally we might know all the tools and think it should just be able to happen overnight because we have all the knowledge. But actually, as you said, you know, there's that heart-head gap in the process.
Absolutely. But then at some point you do start to see shifts and you do start to see changes. So I know something that I did for myself very early on is I would record, literally write down or think back and reflect, and I would find the tiny changes that were better than last time.
Wow,
what did I do this time that was an improvement from last time? Even if this time I'm still not proud of it.
Wow, that's such a beautiful way of viewing it, actually, because I think so much of the time we can be so focused on the end goal and forget about all these micro progresses that we're making along the way, which is what gets us to that end goal. That doesn't just happen from A to B, you know, there's little increments along the way. Beautiful.
I'm always saying to people, like, whether it's like just in conversation, so what have you done well this week? What's gone well?
Yes.
Or just getting them to record something that you've done well, because it is as well, like from a therapeutic point of view, it is motivating. It's important for the person to see. And I know for me, sometimes I wonder, like, is that why I kept going? Because I was like, no, something is shifting. Other people might not be able to see it because maybe I text someone 10 times instead of 11, which still doesn't look great, but it's in the right direction.
Yes.
And that's how the rewiring happens, right?
Yes.
But sometimes there are massive changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can have a wake-up call and you're like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And you don't.
Yeah. Well, I think even if people make the decision to come to a coach like yourself, and actually I just realised I don't know if we've actually properly introduced you yet, so maybe you could also give a little introduction about who you are, what you do. But I think even for people who go to a coach like yourself, that's already a huge step because you have the awareness around the issue and you're willing to do the steps, do the work to make the change, even if it hasn't yet happened yet. I think that's such a huge thing to celebrate, which I don't think enough people celebrate, and even just the awareness around it. You know, how many years do people spend just in this like brain fog of acting or reacting from their wounded place without even realizing that that's what's happening. So, you know, all of those things are huge things to celebrate.
Huge. Like I truly do think that, like, huge. And part of, I'm sure we'll get into this, but for me, part of making positive change and part of healing, whatever you want to call it, is celebrating yourself. And sometimes that is knowing, I definitely lean towards being anxious. I mean, I lean towards worrying a lot. Like, it's so useful to know that. And thinking about my story, when I started to sort of connect those dots of, okay, so I had this upbringing, I'm responding like this in relationships, anxious attachment describes this, or attachment theory describes this. That was also life-changing because when I knew I'm not crazy, because there was, you know, after that, just living in it and then starting to question it, there is this point where you think, am I crazy? Am I just not able to have relationships as easy as everyone else?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so maybe introduce yourself, and then I'd love to hear about then your journey of how you went from being anxiously attached. What were the things that you did to then become so securely attached and now being able to educate others around this topic? So let's introduce you first.
So I'm Kārli-Ann. So I go by therapy and attachment coach. I change it every day. I literally change it every day. But ultimately, so I work sometimes with people who have different anxiety disorders, low mood, depression, and then a huge chunk of my time as well is working with people who present with attachment difficulties. So like you say, people that might show up for that is people that are just constantly seeing these reoccurring painful relationship patterns or fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. And I definitely use my personal experience to connect and perhaps to understand quicker what people are experiencing. But I do think it's really important as well to say that each person, although there's themes, what we might do is different.
Yeah.
And different people have different reactions. And so, yes, my experience helps me connect, but I wouldn't make a decision about what I do with someone based on my experience.
Yeah.
Because that there's actually a lot of research around how helpful it is for your therapist or coach to have had an anxious attachment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
ideally, I'm sure everyone's practicing in a healthy way, but the person doing the practicing needs to genuinely have moved towards secure, because otherwise, because there's that relationship together.
Yes.
Your anxiety will come out with that client.
Yes. Well, they talk about that with any addiction. You know, AA, the people who are running it are people who have genuinely gone through that experience themselves. And, you know, I think with anxious attachment, you could say it's some kind of Bailey. Bailey wants to get on the podcast as well. Maybe I honestly, every single one of my podcasts has ended up having an animal in it at some point.
Really?
So hopefully Bailey will join. I think it's really beautiful, and especially as I say about you, you know, it's so beautiful to see as inspiration that it is possible, especially when you're in that dark place of it's never going to work for me, I'm never going to be able to have a healthy relationship, I'm never going to be able to get past these blockages, because, you know, they do come from childhood, a lot of them, and so they're so deep rooted, and so it is, you know, as I said, it's not just the kind of thing that can just happen overnight, but when you have the inspiration of someone who you're seeing in front of you that has gone through and gone through those blockages themselves, then it does give you hope that, okay, the work will be worth it in the end.
Yeah, and we need that hope. And, you know, in terms of people changing, and this goes way back before like social media and the way that people are sharing today, but if you share someone's recovery journey with someone that's in it, that can be quite helpful, which is why in books and guides and things, there's often other people's examples, because it's really powerful to hear that other people have shifted and other people have changed. And, you know, we're breaking cycles. That's ultimately, like for me, I believe I'm working with people who are determined to break a cycle, because not everyone will, but it is possible. But there has to be this element and this willingness to keep trying each time you trip, each time you fall, and not to give up, because it's messy. It's a messy journey, and I'm not perfect today. I still get triggered, but what I do in terms of the thoughts that come in and me recognizing them is completely different. And there are some things now I genuinely don't get triggered around.
Oh, beautiful.
And there's still some things that I will. And there's some things that I don't get triggered about today, and then suddenly I might again. I said, oh, that's weird that that's triggering me again.
Yes.
But it's that curiosity rather than, oh no,
yes,
I failed and it's not working.
And that's such a beautiful headspace to be in with it as well, because I think that already is such a huge shift, to be able to look at the things that trigger you, and rather than going into this like depressive hole about it of, oh, what does this say about me, I'm this type of person, putting a label on yourself about it, as opposed to just, you know, there's a reason why that triggered you, and you can look into that, as you said, with compassion and curiosity, and then work something out about yourself in that process, and see, okay, there's still that little bit of healing that's left. And, you know, that's why I say about all of these things, it is such a lifelong journey, and that's the beauty of it, really, is that we're just in this constant state of discovering more about ourselves. And I think that's the beauty of life, really, is how we're constantly evolving, constantly growing, but the way to do that is to look at things that trigger you, or you know, wounds that come up, through the lens of curiosity and compassion, rather than, you know, as maybe we would do before, of putting ourselves down or thinking negatively about ourselves, or viewing it as something to not love about ourselves.
Absolutely. And I feel like because, you know, that there is always something else to work on and it's showing itself. However, the more that you kind of go through that, the more tools you have in your toolbox. You know, so maybe you're going into something new and you can feel yourself being triggered, but you've got a whole toolbox now to be like, okay, what's happening here?
Exactly, beautiful.
You know, so you can usually move through it perhaps a bit quicker, because it depends what it is, of course.
So what, I know you probably have a huge toolbox that you help your clients with, but so maybe, you know, do you have one practical tip that you could maybe share with people listening who perhaps they have anxious attachment and, you know, in the moment they just don't know how to, it's, because, you know, I'm speaking from first-hand experience, often in the moment, it feels like it's almost like a different person that's taken over. It just, it can be hard to kind of break the cycle and then be reacting from, you know, a more grounded place. So do you have any practical tips of that can help people in those moments when they feel the anxious attachment kind of flaring up?
Yeah, I think what is useful to say there is you are looking at kind of two different skill sets. So for example, if we are working together on what happens in the moment, then that's what we're looking at. That is going to be different to perhaps some of the deeper trauma work or healing or whatever it is that we're doing, because, or the self-worth work, because we're looking in the moment at kind of survival strategies, your coping strategies. So what I would say here is just be mindful that these kind of strategies, they take effort to use, they're quick shifts, and they're not going to do that like deeper work. So don't then be like, oh, well, what's the point, because it's not dealing with the issue. We're looking at two different elements.
That's a really good point.
You just cope in the moment, and we need to heal overall.
Such a key point.
So things in the moment, I really think this is where it's going to depend on your trigger and what you have access to. So for me, it is a lot about looking at my cognitions and my thoughts and recognizing them. Is that accurate? Am I falling into like comparison? Am I making assumptions? So to really be able to recognize when A, you are feeling triggered, and to acknowledge that, and B, what's happening to my thoughts, what meanings am I attaching to this, like you said. That's really, really important. And that itself puts you into that spot of being the observer. A tiny little gap between being merged with those thoughts of like, this person is rejecting me, to I'm having thoughts that I'm being rejected. There's a slight shift there.
Totally.
If you can hear it.
100%, yeah.
And I think that can make a really big difference.
Definitely.
Our physical shifts, how are you breathing, how you sat, you know, physically what's happening. Are there things that you can do just to shift that? Is it cold water in your face is really powerful. Breathing, just slower, deeper, more compassionate breaths.
All amazing. I read something, I can't remember where it was, but it was speaking about, you know, so much of the time we think our thoughts are then what affects the visceral response that's going on in our body, but actually a lot of the time our body is what is kind of sending messages to our brain telling us how we're feeling. So if we can help prevent the physical responses within our body through breathing exercises and things like that, then that can help prevent the messages that then get sent to our brain of, you know, fight or flight response, basically, of like, run, this is dangerous, or, you know, you need to react in this way to get your needs met because otherwise you're not going to be safe. And that actually I'd love to ask you a little bit more about, because you spoke in your masterclass I also listened to recently about the head-heart gap. So maybe you could explain to people a little bit more about what that is and how we can maybe bridge that gap a little bit more.
Definitely. I will just reflect on what you just said as well about the, you know, state causes thoughts or vice versa. And I always say to people not to get too lost on that, because there's different theories. Some people are going to say the thought comes first. The next psychologist is going to say, no, physical comes first. No, the emotions come first.
That's good to know.
So the way that I work with it is there's a whole cycle. We know that there is a trigger, thoughts, feelings, actions, and your physical sensations.
Yeah.
As an individual, you will know if you ask yourself which of those is your first sign that you're triggered. Is it a thought? Some people access their thoughts really easily. Some people can't access their thoughts that easily. So they might be looking at, my heart starts racing.
Okay.
So I think, what do you have access to first?
Yes, okay.
Which is why I'm a little bit like when people say you have to have breath work. There's no way you can heal without breath work. That's great, but if you get someone who has no idea physically what they feel and they're so cut off and shut down, it's not where you start.
Yeah, that's
you
a really
know.
good
So that's what I would say. Like, but that there are different theories, and I think there's a lot more research coming out on that. The head-heart lag is a whole other thing. So you tend to find this a lot with maybe people that feel like they have been doing the work for a long time, or I've had years of therapy and I know the things, or I've read all the books, I know the things, I know that this is my anxiety, I know that these are irrational thoughts, I know that this person is wrong for me, and yet I still keep doing the thing. You know, I'm still not feeling good enough, I'm still acting like I'm not good enough. And it happens to the best of us. It's like in my training, it was a huge part of the training. It's not like it's just you having this mismatch or therapy's not working for you or coaching. The therapist that you're working with has been trained that this happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we have that. So I think normalising it's really powerful, because that's the moment where you think, I can't do it.
Yes,
You
that's
know?
so true. Yeah, because in our head we've done the work, but maybe our body is sending us different messages.
And in terms of healing it, sometimes people might need trauma therapy, sometimes people might need to really explore what beliefs they have under the surface that is not quite connecting with what they're doing. Sometimes it's more compassion for the fact that you feel a certain way that's different to what you know. Sometimes we're so quick, again, to be like, I'm doing it wrong because I know all of these things, but I still feel this way, I'm still doing this thing. And so, well, hold on, like, that's, if you can have that compassion, like, okay, so I'm feeling this way, and that is different to what I think. Can we be compassionate about that? And again, that's just, it does start to close the gap. It's when we are telling ourselves that we're different, broken, that this isn't right, that it keeps the gap open. Because it's self-criticism is one of the biggest things standing between us and kind of closing that gap.
And standing between us actually being able to heal as well, because if we're so focused on the judgment that we hold towards ourselves, that's energy that we're investing into self-hatred as opposed to being able to help heal ourselves and through compassion and love.
People are doing this work and then criticising themselves because of the head-heart lag, or because it's not happening quick enough, or I haven't met the person yet, whatever it is, and it's that constant, it's just another thing to criticise yourself about. And it's interesting that people will say, I'm doing the work and it's been working and I'm healing, but it's not quick enough. And so then you're like, oh, so you're doing the work, but you're still criticising yourself. And I know we always will criticise ourselves, but they're criticising themselves without awareness. You know, because my critic comes in every day, but it's, can I catch it?
I think, have you heard of internal family systems? So that really helped me to have a different perspective over my behaviours or things like that, because you really realise that every single part of you has a protective reason why it's actually trying to help you. So even though your adult rational self might say, you know, why do you keep going for the same men that are distracted for you, there will be a loving reason behind it, even if it doesn't manifest in the most loving way. There is a loving reason behind why that part of you wants to protect you by going for those sorts of guys or by behaving in those ways. Anxious attachment, for instance, it's very much about that her inner child that's trying to protect you and trying desperately for you to not feel abandoned again, or not to have these things that you're still scarred from your childhood. And so just having that perspective, even if you don't do internal family systems to work out exactly why that might be, just really having compassion for the fact that every single part of you is lovingly trying to help you, even if it doesn't show up in that exact way.
Absolutely. I have done a lot of training around inner focusing, inner relationship focusing, so to really build that secure relationship with yourself. And I see so many crossovers, so many crossovers with IFS. And a lot of the work that I do, that I put out there on my podcast, YouTube, so for free as well, so anyone can use it. Well, I'm doing it more now. Is kind of like visualizations, meditation, just guided talks with me, but it's using that language. So it's not even just teaching that language, it's just, I hope that the more people hear it, the more you might start to just say with yourself, I'm noticing that part of me feels like it really wants to reach out to that person, and another part of me really knows that that's not the right thing to do. Again, it does begin to close that gap between the head-heart. And again, I'm noticing that part of me feels like I'm not good enough, but then I'm also recognizing that I do all of these amazing things, and that I'm inherently good enough anyway. Closing that gap. And then if you can, in terms of one of the things to really close that gap, and this is maybe one of the harder bits, well, I don't know, maybe, is to match your behaviours to that. If you can get in touch with which one's your secure self, your true self, to match your behaviours, align it with your vision, align it with your values in that moment. So what would my secure self do? You're closing that gap, because afterwards you feel so proud of yourself, you feel so good, and you're starting to act what you know, and the feeling will catch up. But just don't expect the feeling to be there straight away. And also, don't be afraid of inner conflict. It's okay. You're allowed to have 3 different ideas.
And even when you're talking about almost that concept, I'm aware that there's part of me that feels this way. I think that's such a it really helps to kind of just take a step back and be the observer of the situation, rather than, as you said before, being so enmeshed in the situation that that becomes your whole identity, that you are the type of person that does this. No, that's a part of you that feels like that's the best way to protect you, but that doesn't mean that that's all of you.
Absolutely, it's definitely not all of you. But I do feel like already. I feel like people know it's not who I am, and maybe that's one of those things that creates that shift within you, or that change, is I know this is not who I am, that there is that knowing. And I think once you can communicate with these different parts, it's so powerful. I literally was having this conversation with someone last week, where having a moment where she was really, really triggered, really activated, and she was able to just have that inner communication and recognise, okay, something in me right now just doesn't want to be rejected. Doesn't want to be rejected. And so it's doing this thing, this crazy thing, but it makes sense.
And I actually just did a post recently about this in terms of conflict in relationships, to be able to take a step back and pause in the situation and really work out what your true need is in that situation. Because sometimes when we're reacting from these wounded places, we think, I'm just angry at my partner because they did this, but the deeper wound could actually be that, you're scared of being abandoned by them or something like that. And so those internal conversations can also allow for much deeper inner inquiry to really work out what your true need is in that situation, rather than what your ego or what, you know, your wounds are trying to tell you that you need in that situation.
Yeah. Healing is happening when someone comes to me and recognises, like, I was triggered and this is what was going on for me inside. That's when I know, okay, something's really happening here.
Yeah, that's huge.
Because it's not just they did this or they did that. A lot of people particularly with the anxiety and anxious attachment are like overthinkers, ruminate, worry, obsess. So there are moments of being really merged with those thoughts and on this loop. And so, you know, a huge part of the work is even just being able to manage that in the moment before needing to do all of that deeper work. But you can really see that shift when, you're just able to step back and look at it even overall. Okay, I'm worrying. Rather than having to put out all the fires of everything that you're worrying about. Everything you're ruminating over. Trying to answer all those why questions and what if questions.
So we've spoken quite a bit about like these deeper wounds, and so I would love to actually ask you, why is it that people become anxiously attached?
So in terms of attachment theory, you're usually looking at the early childhood relationships. I would say there is more to say now that it doesn't have to be that. There are like experiences for people where it's happened later in life. I always feel like that's important to know. But primarily you're looking at unpredictable, inconsistent, like needs being met. Sometimes your needs were met, sometimes love was there, sometimes you felt understood, and other times you didn't. Maybe you didn't, there was that unpredictability of when you was going to experience that love, when you were going to experience having your needs met. Were you going to be criticised or not going to be criticised this time? And obviously that puts you on edge. I even think I can come up with someone immediately that I used to work with who you never knew who you were going to get. And it was like being on eggshells. And that as an adult is not nice. So imagine as a child that you don't quite know. And so you're on this high alert. You start to kind of just obviously crave the times where the love is there, and maybe start to figure out, what do I need to do to get them to be, you know, meeting my needs? Who do I need to be? How do I need to show up? And that idea of worrying, start to really live in your imagination as a young person, to plan, prepare, get ready. What am I going to do if, what if this? And also it's no disrespect to the caregivers or the parents. They often trying their best. And sometimes the caregiver may have themselves had a lot of anxiety. They may have been on edge. They may have been like back and forth themselves. And so I see it a lot as well, that my clients anyway will describe, maybe they were almost like the therapist a lot of the time. So it's another way to be hyper vigilant about someone else's feelings. What are they doing? How do I fix them? In whatever way you look at it, whatever the dynamic is, within you, there kind of isn't this moment of how are you feeling. You don't really get to name your emotions. You don't really learn how to understand your emotions, soothe your emotions, know what's real, know what's not. Because we're complex beings. And we need an adult to be like, that's okay that you feel that. And what are you feeling? What's it like for you?
And then that same behaviour, I guess, then is how it manifests in then, you know, dating scenarios and relationships, because people with anxious attachment, they want to people please, and they put their partner's needs above their own, but that can also in turn cause them to self-abandon in the process.
Absolutely. Oh, hello.
Maybe I think she's been having some dreams. I think that's why.
Yeah, I think the definition of love, relationships, yourself, becomes very distorted through those experiences. So inconsistency, the chaos, the unpredictability, criticism, whatever it looked like, that becomes your sort of benchmark and definition of love and definition of relationships. That's your blueprint and your template for what is love. And so, and you're not questioning that.
Yes.
You're not thinking like, oh, I feel unsafe, or love is unpredictable for me. That's your reality. You go in and then you're in that stage of just living it out.
Yeah.
This is what's real.
Yes.
You know, so I think that's huge, is then eventually as an adult when you start to question, like, is this love?
Yeah.
Is this right? This doesn't feel good.
Yes.
I'm not getting the outcome that other people seem to be getting.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy when you, for me, hearing that message of, essentially that a lot of the time when our nervous system is activated, if you have anxious attachment, then you will associate that with being attracted to the person, love, because that is how you've associated love from childhood. And that was such a big light bulb moment of awareness for me, because I was dating somebody at the time who, was very much the kind of bad boy vibe that you would and I realized that I had that. I would have these ups and downs of, he texted me and it would give me the butterflies. And actually now one of the things that I teach in my dating coaching is butterflies is not a good thing. That's, we've associated butterflies, even in the movies and things like that. It's like, oh, they gave me butterflies. It's such a romanticized thing. Yeah. But actually that's often a trauma response.
Yeah. I think if you're someone who leans towards secure attachment, we do want to feel excited. So we do want the butterflies. We want the chemistry with someone, right? If you don't, like, that is fair enough. But I know for me, I still wanted that attraction.
Yeah. But for me, I feel like there's a difference between attraction and like the butterflies effect.
Yeah, so I think this is what I was going to say, because most people, whatever their attachment style, when they meet that person, they describe butterflies, right? That's kind of the general how you describe it. What I would say for people with anxious attachment is they do need to pay more attention to that. So I wouldn't say like you have to go out and not have any chemistry and not have butterflies with someone, but you really need to be mindful of it. So are you getting excited by the highs and lows, the ups and downs? The thing for someone with anxious attachment is that they might not get butterflies when they're being treated well. So I think it is something about attachment styles, and I'm never one to say like no, like you just need to feel nothing, because I think that's where people can get a bit confused with the message that's put out there about like chemistry and butterflies. So for me, what I was like, okay, so I know that if I have butterflies and I'm really excited and I can't set boundaries and I can't be myself and all of these other things, these are internal red flags.
Yes.
Because if, like with my current partner now, I definitely have butterflies. I was definitely excited. And I think knowing that, I had to also look at their behaviour. Was there consistency? Did or was I just obsessed with the butterflies? I think there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yes, yeah. Well, there has to be the compatibility there as well, which often people can prioritise the butterflies over, actual compatibility.
Yeah, actually, I think if we was to summarise it, I think that's the thing, is people put the butterflies and that this must mean it's love, and it mustn't, but it doesn't mean any of that. So I have the butterflies, but what about the rest of it? Is there kindness? Is there consistency? Is there someone showing up? And ultimately, no, because that goes away. It does go, like the way that I when looking back now, it's actually wild how much I prioritised that kind of early dating stuff over what you actually need to sustain and have a long-term relationship. And I think sometimes that's why we struggle to get past the dating stage, sort of when it's anxious attachment, because you are so busy trying to find the one, so busy, like, okay, so how do I get attention? How do I keep them here? How do I not get rejected? You're not even getting ready for the skills it actually takes.
Yeah. Or even looking at, do I even like them, really as a whole human being? Or do I just love the fact that this guy that has this job or is 6 foot something or whatever it might be is interested in me? And actually, taking a step back and being like, wait, am I actually interested? How do I feel when I'm around this person? Do I just feel super anxious, or do I feel peaceful and joyful and happy when I'm around this person? And that's the stuff that's going to actually last a lifetime. You don't want to be anxious for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so difficult. It's such a complex situation because, again, with anxious attachers, even in relationships, they often don't feel that peace, don't feel that calm. There's people with anxious attachment in long-term relationships, and they're in the right relationship. They don't feel that peace and that calm because they're constantly worried.
Yeah.
Worried about not just their partner leaving, they're worried about if something bad is going to happen to their partner when they leave the house today.
Yeah.
They're worried about, if they're not worried about that, they've moved on and now they're worried about money. And they're worried about things going wrong, or they're worried about their kids. They worry.
Yeah.
So that idea of peace, and when you go on a date, do you feel calm? Possibly not.
Yeah.
Possibly not. And I think that's what we're dealing with, is underneath all of the logical side of things. The right person brings peace and calm. Someone with an anxious attachment might not feel that.
Yeah. And so to what extent do you feel like people need to do the work on themselves if they are in relationships separate from their partner, and how much of it should or can be done in unison with their partner as well in the process?
I wouldn't know the sort of specific answer to that, but absolutely, because for anxious attachment, you are learning perhaps that how do I manage myself? How do I manage these thoughts? How do I not seek this reassurance? So a lot of it really depends on what the urges are right now. Is the urge to seek reassurance? Is the urge to hide what your needs are so that they don't leave? So whatever the urge that you have to feel good enough or to keep this person here, once you've pinpointed that, you're probably looking at, can I not do that, and can I deal with the discomfort that brings? I would always say though, to have help. I think have help, therapist, coach, outside of the relationship, that's so useful. But yes, bring your partner in. If we're talking about a relationship that's formed, bring your partner in.
And so in your situation, well, if you don't mind sharing, is your partner securely attached, and then that helped you become more securely attached? Or did he have avoidant tendencies and then you worked through both of your insecure attachments together?
We've never worked, he doesn't really do the work in this way, he doesn't need to the same way. It's not like his passion. He's naturally self-aware, he's naturally got a lot of the skills that I've had to learn. In terms, I see anxiety in him sometimes, I see secure in him, and sometimes I see avoidance in him, particularly if there's conflict. And what's the other question?
But so for you then, because I guess, and actually maybe this is something we can touch on in a second, but it is really interesting for me how often anxiously attached individuals will end up with avoidantly attached individuals, even though on paper it seems like they would be totally mismatched. But so say if there is anybody listening who is anxiously attached or even avoidantly attached, and then their partner is that opposite, how, to what extent do they need to work through that together as opposed to working on their own individual insecure attachments separately?
Yeah, I think if it's causing issues within the relationship, and obviously a lot of the time it will, then hopefully both of you can be on board for wanting to change. It is harder if it's only one person. There isn't really any denying that. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is harder.
Yes, yeah.
And so I would say definitely, because it's always useful to have that space where it's you on your own doing the work, because you're always going to be that bit more honest, maybe a bit more, I don't know, just able to look at how do I soothe myself, what do I need, and you need to build that secure relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
So whether that looks like an hour of therapy a week, whether it looks like an hour of self-help a week, I would be intentionally spending that time with yourself.
Yeah.
But of course there needs to be that communication together, and again, who knows how much that looks like. Is it couples therapy together? Is it time to truly speak? You know, you hear about like couples meetings and things like that, to really be able to have that space to communicate about what's going on beneath the surface. Because obviously what a lot of couples will do is have the argument, some kind of repair, and then carry on. And then they'll have a different argument, but about the same underlying things. I can't really give you time and numbers, but you're going to see better results if both people are working on it, for sure.
And so, to what extent, because I think, especially with anxiously attached individuals, because of the people-pleasing tendencies, because of essentially putting everybody else's needs above your own, all those sorts of things, and that desperate fear of being abandoned, so therefore moulding and bending yourself into whatever you perceive is going to make you not be abandoned. To what extent, with taking this kind of self-responsibility as an anxious attached person, at what point can it kind of become slightly self-abandonment as well, of putting all the responsibility on yourself to do the healing work and make the relationship better and all that kind of stuff? You know, how would you recognise that, if for an anxious attachment person that has taken a lot of responsibility of the healing process, how would you differentiate that in terms of self-responsibility and doing the work that's going to help you in the relationship, as opposed to just completely self-banning by putting too much pressure on yourself to be the one to kind of do all the healing work of the relationship?
How would I know? I mean, firstly, through their language. Are they telling you, I need to fix this, I need to do this? Are they clearly taking the responsibility? If I don't do this, then it won't be okay. Another big sign, I'm just imagining how I would look out for it, perhaps would be that they've not had the conversation with their partner. That they've not asked, they've not given their partner the opportunity to be involved, because they have assumed they won't want to. They've assumed that they'll think that's too much, or I don't know, like, and unfortunately some people are in a relationship with people who would be like, absolutely not. But some people are in a relationship with someone who does want to meet their needs, they do want to try, but you've got to give them that opportunity. I just put an example on my story today. So coming here this morning, see, I've shared with you that I've got a baby, just under 1-year-old baby, and you gave me the option to do this podcast in person or online. And I felt that urge to do it online to make their lives, or his life, easier, rather than look after the baby and things like that and have to sort things out. And actually, so a few things got changed around, as I said this morning, but he said, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. There was nothing in his mind to say no, or it's a problem. I created that problem. I created that. Guilt came from me thinking I shouldn't put him under, I don't know if I use this language, but you know, put that on him. It wasn't really thoughts, it was more just a feeling. And so when I felt that come up this morning on the train, I just replayed him saying, he said the words, no, go for it. Yeah, do it.
Beautiful.
Why not believe that? What part of me is not believing that? And that is afraid that he's now at home thinking, how dare she take time for it. He won't, that's not on his mind. He's just looking after her. Probably not, barely even proud, probably just having his coffee, living in the moment, looking after the baby.
True. Yeah.
You know, it's just he will be doing that and I'm having all of these ideas.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you just need to give the other person the opportunity. You know.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I've answered your question. I kind of digressed a bit.
Yeah.
But I do feel like that's, that those kind of signs that you're taking on too much responsibility. I do think that not expressing yourself is a huge way that you abandon yourself.
Yes, 100%. But then what about, because, you know, with some avoidantly attached people, they're so far down that route that communication is really difficult for them. And so at what point, like, have you ever had any of your clients that once they've done the healing work on themselves, that they actually end up leaving a relationship because they recognize that, well, I can't get my needs met in this relationship because my partner, we can't communicate through these things? Do you ever see that panning out at all?
Yeah, and I don't always think it's that because you've done the work, because I think this is one of the reasons that a lot of people don't do the work. They're so afraid of what they'll realise, of what it will mean. If I go to therapy, or if we go to therapy, does that mean that we're going to realise all of the stuff that we're not right for each other? However, of course, there are times where there is a hard conversation to have. If you are in a relationship and you're someone that does need that level of communication and it is not happening and you have tried everything, then there will be a hard conversation to have with yourself. But you're experiencing that pain whether you go and get the help or not.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's a big fear. But yeah, of course, there are a million reasons why people don't last. And communication is a huge one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and then bringing it back to the whole compatibility thing, you know, I think things like healthy communication, like some level of emotional intelligence, things like that, are things which, you know, they don't seem the sexiest, they're not your number one priority when you date somebody, but I do think looking out for those things when you're dating somebody, especially if you are somebody who has anxious attachment, for instance, that needs to be a priority in what you're looking for in a person, that there can be that healthy level of communication, because otherwise, you know, you might have that chemistry part where it's, you know, all exciting, but you won't have enough compatibility to then make the relationship last long term, with, as we said before, about the toolkits.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things about like the butterflies. If you've got the butterflies and you're feeling like, was there chemistry here, it's more reason to have these kind of conversations with people so that you can find out who they are. Is this something real that I'm feeling? Because just because you have butterflies, we don't have to follow that. Just how we feel, we don't have to act a certain way just because we feel it, or even just because we think it. And the healthy communication, it's so key. It's such a risk for people with insecure attachment. It's such a risk to speak things out loud because of your past experiences. And so, you know, whilst the avoidant attachers may find it hard to verbalise and to take part in those conversations, the anxious attacher often doesn't communicate well. They will think that they do because they're saying it, but often it's very messy. Often that what they're saying, there's not facts behind, it's their unhelpful thinking patterns coming out. It's they might say what they want through complaining or through making accusations. So the two of them just kind of push each other away in these other ways, or, you know, bring the anxious closer. So that's why I think if both of you are willing to work on it, the couples therapy is such a good space to do that. And if it is only the anxious attacher working on it, then, you know, you're going to have to be really willing to be patient with yourself and with them. But if the anxious attacher is working on it themselves and they become less, you know, angry or criticising, you might find anyway that the avoidant attacher becomes a bit closer.
Yes, because there is that dance, isn't there? You know, it's the avoidant pulls away, the anxious gets closer, but then the more secure the anxious attacher becomes, then the more the avoidance starts to come
Absolutely.
towards secure attachment as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I do agree. It's definitely harder when there's only one person kind of doing that. But it is possible for you to both kind of become more securely attached, even with just one person doing the work.
Definitely.
But I also love what you say as well about, because I think when I was kind of in the depths of anxious attachment, I really felt like people who are anxiously attached are the victims, and people who are avoidantly attached are the, the perpetrators, basically. And actually, the more I kind of looked into it and educated myself around it, both sides are equally performing from wounded places. Both sides desperately just want emotional safety, but that manifests in different ways for them. And so pointing out as well with, anxious attachment, again, it's not to place blame on yourself, but the way that you're communicating perhaps isn't in the best interest of getting either of your needs met or heard. And so, I think like getting out of that kind of like victim mentality of we're not doing anything wrong and they're the ones that are causing us to feel this way, it actually helps to empower you in the situation to recognize that there is tools that you can do yourself, and
Absolutely.
It's not just them putting it all onto you.
Yeah, when I hear that them being the villain, or so it's the avoidant attacher kind of described as the villain, and the anxious attacher is often described as like the jealous, crazy person.
Yeah.
And I think, just all the compassion for everyone's individual experience. But I can often tell kind of perhaps the state that someone's in, who maybe that's someone who's in that early stage where they're just in it, living it. And I see it in kind of comments on social media, and it is that they do this or they do this and they do this, and I often don't respond because it's not worth getting into that back and forth with someone in that current state. And I sometimes just think maybe they're just literally right now not getting a text back from someone, they're in the anger sphere. But you can quite often see that person probably isn't very secure, because I tend to find that the more someone leans towards secure, the more they do the work, they start to have more of an understanding and that compassion that you're talking about.
Yes,
so if you are in that blaming mindset, that's probably a bit of a red flag, but there's some work to do for you.
Yeah. Because that's the thing is, again, when you're in that anxious attachment phase, then you think that the avoidant attachment is very selfish. Yeah. And actually, both are selfish in that situation. Someone who's in the midst of their anxious attachment, they're only thinking about themselves in that situation. And again, it's not to place blame, but just to really, I think and I say this as well about, men and women and all these things, so much conflict can be diluted when we just have compassion for the differences, and we might not fully understand, like an avoidant might not fully understand exactly where an anxious attachment person's head's at with all these things, but just having compassion for, they're doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have at that time. And the same with avoidance, that is their coping strategy in the same way that it's an anxious attachment person's coping strategy, and just having compassion for either of those sides, definitely leads you more towards secure attachment, but also allows for any kind of like conflict repair to happen so much more easily as well.
Yeah. When you can develop the skills to put yourself in the position of someone else, or to zoom out in lots of different anxieties, you'll see some really positive results.
Yes, 100%. So I have some quick fire questions that I ask people at the end, which I didn't send over to you, so you'll just come up with whatever comes to mind. But so, what is the meaning of love to you?
I asked you to ask this on my podcast to guests. So it has changed a lot over the years, but I have to say now the word that just comes up for me is consistency. I really do feel like creating that kind of consistent safety, and just knowing what to expect. I think we can get our highs from somewhere else, go on a roller coaster, go to a theme park, whatever it is, but the consistency and the behaviours being consistent, with sometimes there's exceptions, But that for me has become what really, when I've looked at care, I've had to redefine love. There's something in it, I can't sort of verbalise it fully, that is around consistent behaviours, healthy behaviours. Let's get that really clear. People can be very consistently...
Not consistent abusive behaviour.
Yeah, and people can be like consistently inconsistent. So yeah, and I see that even like with, because a lot of what I'm learning is through my daughter now. And you really start to realise what is love without language.
Wow.
You know, how do you show that? And it is through the predictability, I think.
Yeah.
And just being there without expectations.
Beautiful. And how wonderful as well that the work that you've done on yourself to become more securely attached means that you most probably will not be passing that on to your daughter as well. I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, there's so much now. I think even a few years ago, I wouldn't have quite understood some of what secure attachment requires, because without this current relationship, I wouldn't have got to practice it first.
Beautiful. What do you wish you knew earlier about love?
Maybe that. I think what I wish that I knew is that it's okay to lose it. It's okay to lose it if it is that inconsistency again. If it's not messy, if it's inconsistent, if it's highs and lows, if it's unpredictable, if it's someone's behaviours not matching their words, it's okay to speak up and say, what the hell is this? What is this? And then to see their response.
Yeah.
I wish I had done that sooner. So I think just to be more yourself, express yourself, and to see what the results are in front of you and not be afraid of that.
Yes, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see so much of the time people, I think especially women, and I speak about this actually in a recent post that I posted, but how women are so conditioned that our sense of success comes from being chosen by a partner, and I think that's so disempowering because there are so many beautiful aspects to life. Listen, I do relationship coaching. I'm such a big advocate for the beauty of partnership, and at the same time, if that is your whole sense of self-worth, is to be in partnership, you will end up staying in things because you're so scared of being alone that you'd rather stay in something which is the known but is toxic, even abusive. And so that, I think that's a really huge message for people, is just to really recognize that it will always be better for you to be alone than be in a toxic, abusive relationship, just because there's somebody else's physical vessel by your side occasionally.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. And finally, is there anyone, anything, any group of people that you would love to send love to now on the podcast?
Oh, anyone, any group of people? What do you mean? Do you mean just
anyone that if they're listening to this podcast right now, you'd like
podcast.
them to know that you love them?
Yeah, I think anyone, look, go to anyone, whatever your attachment style, okay? However, I'm going to just send a little bit of extra love to anyone that grew up with a lifestyle that's led them into an insecure attachment. Because I believe, and maybe this is the insecurity in me, that it's unfair. It is not fair that some people didn't get to learn to self-soothe and what healthy love is and what it is just to go to bed at night and feel safe. That's really unfair. And as adults, we have a lot more work to do to be able to experience that. So just sending love that way.
Yeah. Amazing. And so where can people find you online, Kylie, then?
So I would say if you want to sort of dive into some of my work and like I've spoken about, like some of the meditations and things, my podcast, or it's on YouTube as well, which is Lessons in Attachment. if you just want some hot tips or get to know me a little bit more, Instagram, carly.ann_, and about working with me would be my website, which is carly-ann.co.uk.